Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the Vehicle Owner's Manual for important feature limitations and information.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
So attention cricket clubs and cricketing family, are you ready to step up to the crease and make a long-lasting impact on your club's legacy? Listen up, we've got something special for you. Introducing Fund It Now, the revolutionary fundraising platform that's changing the game for cricket clubs everywhere. With Fund It Now, clubs of all sizes can create a lasting legacy by selling personalised plaques to their passionate members, supporters and cricket club family.
That's right, Livo. Fund It Now has already left its mark on some of cricket's most iconic venues like Lords, the home of cricket, Somerset County Cricket Club, and with projects such as the Father Time Wall and Somerset Legends Wall.
And here's the best part, Hugh. There are absolutely no upfront costs. Fundraising has never been more simple or accessible.
Imagine walking around your club's ground or up to the pavilion and seeing a bespoke wall of dedication, celebrating the history of your club and supporting its future with every plaque. It's like your club's very own shrine to the sport we all love.
And getting involved couldn't be easier. Simply visit Fund It Now's website at funditnow.co.uk to get started today, or drop them an email at info@funditnow.co.uk to learn more. It's time to rally your supporters and start raising money like never before. And don't forget to tell them you heard it from us at the Premier League Cricket Show.
So what are you waiting for? Join the ranks of clubs and grounds like Somerset County Cricket Club and Lords and make your mark on cricket history.
Visit Fund It Now today and start building your fundraising platform. That's funditnow.co.uk. Fund It Now, where passion meets purpose at your cricket club, and begin creating your own legacy. Welcome to the Premier League Cricket Show, and we've got one of our specials that we're doing today. We're going to be doing a few of them through the season as we pick 1 or 2 people to choose from around the country, and we're going to be talking to 1 or 2 of the overseas guys who are in the UK playing Premier League cricket. Join us today with myself and Hugh. How are you doing, Hugh?
How are we doing?
Is someone who Hugh's been quite keen to get on, because we're going to make sure this is not a Western Australia Tourist Board advert. If it turns into one, don't worry, we'll send it out to the lads in Western Australia anyway. But joining us from Esher in Surrey is Teague Wyllie. How are we doing, Teague?
Going well, fellas. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. So for those who don't know, Esher in the Surrey Championship, they're sitting third at the moment on the back of wins against Wimbledon. They've also just beaten Sutton. They finished 6th last year. Came very close to getting a little bit higher in the league, I think. But they've obviously decided, let's get I'm going to call you a big name, Teague, with your Western Australia background in there. Get someone in, but don't worry, everyone who's watching. He might be the big name, but I can tell you right now, he's coaching up to how many hundreds of kids this week, Teague?
Yeah, well, there's about 600 kids registered at Esher, so I've been fortunate enough to be told I'm looking after a lot of them.
There you go. So just so you know, everyone who listens around the country who's got a pro, and they all get involved. Even these guys down in Surrey with humongous amount of kids around are doing exactly the same. So how are you enjoying London? First question, Teague, dead simple.
Oh, it's been great. The Esher Cricket Club's been awesome to me. They've put me up in a great house in Esher. The club's been awesome, so welcoming. I've never felt so welcome at a club for a long time. So to be able to come down here and slide in has been so easy. And then all the touristy stuff, getting to see Buckingham Palace, the London Eye, the Big Ben, it's all stuff you got to see. Seeing a little bit of Clapham too, so it's been very good to enjoy.
Were you disappointed with Buckingham Palace? Like it's hard, it's not particularly impressive. It's what do you think of it?
Well, I probably can't say too much. I don't want to offend the English who love the Royals, but I was slightly a little bit underwhelmed with touristy stuff. I tend to like going to the shops and doing the Camden markets and the borough markets and that stuff. So Buckingham Palace was slightly underwhelming, but I think it's one of those amazing things. There's so much history around, and I do enjoy. You got to see it, don't you?
Yeah. I always liked the Tower of London as a kid. Like I always liked that. Was quite creepy. There's some good stories lurking around there, so that's another one for you.
But not just down the road from you. You've got one of the most historical places in the whole of the bloody country, which will come alive in the next couple of weeks, and you play against them. It's our friends at Wimbledon as well. So you're going to get down there when the tennis is on.
I'd love to go and have a look at Wimbledon. I'm a massive Wimbledon fan. I remember nearly 5 years ago now when the World Cup final was on and then the Wimbledon final was on. I think it was Federer and Nadal, and it was just one of the most hectic days of sport. London must have been absolutely heaving that day. So
that's right.
Ever since that game, I've been, follow the tennis at Wimbledon very closely. And we played against them a couple of weeks ago, and they're a pretty good outfit. So definitely going to try and get a few of the Esher lads down to go watch the tennis at Wimbledon.
So onto the cricket. I mean, you've flown into the country a few weeks ago. You started off with a fair few runs. I think you get 70 odd in your first match, 148 not out, was it, in your second game? And then 70 odd.
I've got out every week, but I've been lucky to scramble a few together.
Yeah. So, I mean, how have you found it? I mean, I know sort of around the country talking to captains of Premier League sides and things like that, Australians often take a bit of time to settle just because conditions are very different, but you don't seem to have had that problem. Well, have you been able to prep coming in? Is there something you've done? You're coached by Tom Scully in Western Australia, who played in the Surrey Champ and for Middlesex, I believe. Did he help you out before you came over?
I've got a lot of English friends who have told me the wickets are going to be pretty slow. And coming from Perth, we've probably got, the most renowned fast and bouncy wickets in the country. So playing most of my Shield games at the Wacker, it did take a little bit of adjusting. I was lucky to have a grass net or two before playing proper league fixtures. But I'm also lucky that my home ground in Perth is also probably one of the slower ones in the competition. So batting on slow, low, the odd turning wicket when it's a bit of moisture in it, I'm not too foreign to it.
Right.
And I'd like to think I'd take quicker to adjust than the average player. So I back myself on trying to make runs in all the conditions. And that's the whole part of coming to play cricket in England. I think it's a great nursery to try a few things and learn how you want to be as a player. So it's been thoroughly enjoyable so far getting to play in the different conditions.
Brilliant. Just, jumping into, your pedigree there. You had a meteoric rise, I think is the term. Jumping into the Western Australian team, I just gone the numbers there. When you basically started in the West Australian Shield team, which is in a period of total dominance, Western Australia. They've won the last 3 Shields. I think they won 3 one-day cups in a row. I was used to call it, was it the Pura Cup back in the day, in my day? And then 2 of the last 3 Big Bash as well. So you've been able to get into that side, and that's, there's not many state teams in Australia, and to get yourself into that side is really terrific work, and winning the Sheffield Shield as an 18-year-old, that's some performance. How have you managed to sort of break into that side? What's been the process of coming through from juniors, to break into that team?
Well, I started my Premier cricket down at Rockingham Mandurah. I played as an 11-year-old in the under-13s, as a lot of local guys do, and then managed to make a few runs, get picked in a few squads. Never had the greatest national championships up until under-17s, where I had a good championship. And then coming from that, when COVID hit, instead of going to the national 19s championships, they basically said, we're going to pick you off your second 11 form. So I was picked to play WA second 11 when I was 17, and then played 2 games, got 200s, and then they got picked in the World Cup squad, went to the 19s World Cup, had a decent campaign, come back, got invited to play a WACA practice match against, there were some pretty big names in there. I know Sean Marsh, Josh Inglis, Aaron Hardy, Stoinis, Barron, all these guys. Ended up getting about 80 and then went and played a grade game on the weekend, got 100, and then by that time I was in the next Shield squad. So
nice.
Went to Bankstown on my first away trip, didn't get picked, come back to the WACA. I was still 17 at the time. Got picked to debut against Victoria, who had James Pattinson, Scotty Boland, John Holland, who have all played Test cricket. So it was pretty frightening. I had Big Pato steaming in to bowl. I think I got 40 odd and then ended up playing in the Shield final, managed to keep my spot. And then, that was one of the most amazing games of cricket. I ended up winning that, and I was still 17 at the time. So
you 17 when you,
when I won the first, I was still 17.
Fantastic, yeah.
How daft is that, Hugh? 17 when I won the first. That says a hell of a lot. What intrigues me with what you're saying there, Teague, is that second 11 thing. Now, it's a bee in our bonnet for me and Hugh about how second 11 cricketers and Premier League cricketers in the UK are put in and out. We've got a good friend of the pod, Sab Pereira, who plays up here in the Nottinghamshire area, we think he's played for maybe half a dozen different second 11s right now. I get the impression of what you were saying in Western Australia, in the Australian system, when you're in that second 11 for Western Australia, you are a Western Australia boy, full stop, end of story? Pretty
much, yeah. Well, it's almost impossible to go and play a second 11 game for WA and then go play one for Victoria the next week.
Yeah. Geography is a bit different.
It's a pretty long drive. So I think a lot of the Australian cricketers are pretty patriarchal towards their states as well. Like I can tell you now, man to man, I don't fancy going and playing for Victoria or New South Wales. Like, if I want to play for WA.
Okay, who's our next guest going to be? We've got to find someone from Victoria or New South Wales now, right?
They probably won't like me. And then, so I think the second 11 system's very different over here. Like I see I got told about a kid who debuted when he was 14. I've seen guys debut at 16 and 17. And I just feel like when you're that age, you're not quite ready yet. Like I'd say I was even still not quite, I might have been ready cricket-wise, but mentally I wasn't quite there yet. So, and like you play some proper attacks in Australian second 11. There was an attack we had this year that had Jai Richardson, Joel Paris, Matt Kelly, and Corey Rockacholi, who are 4 dominant Shield cricketers. So it's quite different, and I don't think we find that in England as much. They're pushed through, and there's no shame in playing first grade and dominating and learning your craft before getting picked. A lot of people here are so eager, and I see it in first grade a lot. They're 14, 15, I want to be playing first grade. Why am I getting picked in the 4s? There's no shame in playing 2s and 3s and 4s and learning your craft. And most of the time you play 2s, you're playing with a couple of old guys, you play X4s, same thing, or a couple of old guys. They teach you how to play your cricket, and you learn so much in that period before just getting chucked into the deep end, and you're not there yet. You're not ready.
There seems to be a bit of a disconnect in this country, and it's not something you can comment on particularly, but between county cricket and Premier League cricket, there's this disconnect. And I think some people are not happy with that because there's some top performances that just get brushed under the carpet. There's closer connections potentially with private school cricket and obviously second 11 cricket. But in Australia, from afar, it seems like the grade cricket system has a much tighter link with the state system. Is that true?
I'd have to tend to agree with you there. And I get quite, I'm pretty strongly opinionated on this, and other people might disagree with school cricket. I understand a lot of these kids are on scholarships. A lot of the schools are quite expensive to go to, but I just can't see how playing school cricket over playing first grade Premier cricket is going to be more beneficial for you. You're playing against men in the Premier League who are going to get stuck in you. They're going to not be afraid to bounce you. They'll get stuck. They'll spray you. And I think as a cricketer, that hardens you up. Like, I was fortunate enough to play first grade in Perth when I was 15. Didn't do great, averaged 15 or 20, but that actually forged me into being a lot more mentally tough. So when I go out and play in a new country and I'm getting sprayed by the English, I'm more mentally prepared for it. But for these kids, all of a sudden they're 17, 18 playing school cricket. It's very, I wouldn't say it's friendly. I've obviously never been in that situation. But then they go to men's cricket and it's just totally different. So the jump can be higher, but I just think if you play men's cricket. I played my first game of men's cricket with my dad when I was 9. So I know it's quite different. The local 40-year-old's not going to be spraying the 9-year-old, but
you never know.
You do learn very quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example of what we've been talking about for weeks now, Hugh, isn't it? I mean, we've had a number of games that we've looked at over the previous weeks where if you were to put a 16, 17, 18-year-old in who's at, I'll just pick a school, Millfield, or who's at Repton near me, who's at one of the big schools, and it's costing a fortune for them to be there, or they're on a scholarship, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, but they're only playing in those games against their under-16 rivals, and they're not being challenged in the first place. But then you go and play for, I'm going to say, Mildenhall in the East Anglian Premier League, and all of a sudden you've got the opportunity of playing against Great Witchingham, and you've got Monty Panesar, Jake Weatherall's playing there, Phil Mustard from England, and Ollie Stone can rock up. Now, that's a challenge, but that's how you learn, because let's be honest, a 16-year-old playing against a 16-year-old, different level altogether, and you have to be pushed through that. We call it club, you call it grade system, don't you?
And the thing with my opinion on that as well, is they could say, yeah, but it's a great standard school cricket. Well, yeah, I completely agree. I'm not saying the school standard's bad. No. But they're the best 16-year-olds in that area, as opposed to the best 11 cricketers in that area. Dilution is a lot higher.
Totally agree.
So does the state system, Western Australia, are they looking at grade cricket then? They look at every week. If someone puts 300s together on the bounce in grade cricket, or starts, running in at 85 and knocking people over, are they paying attention to that, and will they pluck them out into second 11 cricket?
Yep, 100%. So the connection between it is a lot stronger now. If you're probably, when you're slightly younger, I'd like to say if you're a 31, 32-year-old dominating club cricket, you still get looked at. You might get thrown in for a second 11 game, but it's probably more so as a younger guy, and that's just the way the business works, unfortunately. Yeah. But since Adam Voges has taken over, and JL did it as well, was that if you're not playing a Shield game and you're not playing a one-day game, you're playing club cricket. Right. And I think it strengthens up the whole comp. And it shows actually how good your attitude is. Can you go down a level and still be a professional around those guys and try and teach them? Because if you've got a stronger competition, if you're playing, let's say for the young kids playing at Scarborough, if they've got Lance Morris, Andrew Tye, Cooper Connolly playing, that strengthens up the whole competition, doesn't it? Yeah. Everyone tends to go up a level. So it shows your attitude, and it also just strengthens up the comp. And I think that might be a result. WA have won 8 of the last 9 Cricket Australia competitions. So it might seem like a little thing. Obviously, we've got great players, but attitude is important with that. And we go back to club cricket and we try our absolute hardest.
So we have got one league, which you might not be aware of in the UK, the Southern Premier League, Teague, who do something which no one else in the country does as far as we're aware, Hugh, is it? But the Hampshire Academy, first-class county, the Hampshire Academy are a permanent team in the Premier League down in the Southern Premier League. Now, the lads who play in the Hampshire Academy could be related to another club in the area. It doesn't really matter. They could be related to Bournemouth or whoever. But actually, if Hampshire Academy picked them, they play for Hampshire Academy on the Saturday. And they're playing, as I would always say, against those hairy-arsed 20, 30, 35-year-old blokes who've been in Premier League cricket for many years, and they're getting that experience like that. And then on Monday, they're back in the academy. That, I think, is a great way of linking the two, county Premier League together, isn't it?
The only other state that I've seen do that in Australia is South Australia. So they've gone slightly more English the last year or two. They've now got Div 1 and Div 2. So
Did you say slightly more English?
Yeah, slightly more English.
Warning to listeners, what's he going to say here?
So in South Australia, they used to have, I think, 13 or 14 teams in Premier Cricket, but now they've gone 8 in Div 1 and 6 in Div 2. And one of those teams in Div 2 was the South Australia under-19s team. So every year they play against all the teams in Div 2. So that's the only other one that would be something similar to that.
Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com's primetime kickoff event. Save up to 50% off select styles, plus doorbusters. Rules and restrictions may apply.
onto the Western Australia system, I was just nosing around. I didn't play cricket over in Western Australia. I played football because it was just too hot, to be honest. I was down the beach. But we've got 16 teams. Is that right? 16 grade teams. So and that's just in one division.
So the way Cricket Australia works with their grade systems, and it's a lot different to England. So each state has their own grade cricket. Right? So Western Australia, however big the state is, you can fit about 10 Englands in it, has got one grade cricket competition. South Australia's got one grade cricket competition. Victoria, New South Wales, etc. So it's a lot less confusing, and the talent's all in one big pool, you'll find. So there's 16 teams. Each team has a 13s, 14s, 15s, 17s, 4s, 3s, 2, 1s. So, and there's no such thing as relegation, promotion. It's just each team has a team. Each team has those teams, and they play against each other. There's 15 rounds. You play each other once.
So your pathway into that. So if you're an up and coming, 11-year-old, are you playing for your local club side that's not related to, like Mandurah area, Rockingham area? There's like a local comp, and then you get selected out of that in the same way that a young lad might get selected for, Leicestershire or, Surrey or whatever.
Yep, 100%. So my local club's Rockingham Mandurah. So there's a competition called the Peel Cricket Association, which has about 14 or 16 teams, very similar to the grade cricket. They've got 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s. And then the best out of that age group tends to trial for Rockingham Mandurah, and then they pick the best out of that. So it's quite a clear-cut system as to how you get into there. And then the same thing goes as to go up a grade. You've got 16 under 13s, under 14s teams.
Yep.
And then the best 13 or 15 out of that gets picked for WA. So the system, for me, because I've been around it, makes much more sense.
Yeah. Do you keep that connection with your original club, or is that sort of you are now a Rockingham Mandurah player, you're not related to the first club you got picked out of?
I'm probably slightly different because my dad's played at this club for 35 years. He's the actual competition where I'm from is called the Wyllie Cup, named after him and his brother. So they've played a lot of cricket in that league. He's got a grandson.
We have Western Australia royalty here, Hugh.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So I'm quite fortunate. So I tend to go down every few weeks or so to my local club, Mandurah, and see a few of the guys because I played a lot of cricket with them. And when I was 8 or 9 and playing, and I was playing with Dad, but the A grade boys were like my heroes. Yeah. So I'll still go down. They're probably a bit older now, 40, 45, but they're almost like father figures to me because they'll, running around in nappies pretty much at that club.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I've got a close connection, but you might not find that with a lot of other guys.
So if you're not playing for Western, who would you play for?
I'd play for Rockingham Mandurah, Mike. That's the Premier Cricket.
Which is no different to, practically every county and cricket club in the whole of the UK, just on a smaller scale because it's a bit bigger Western Australia.
Yeah.
Well, you've got, Esher, you've got, your opening partnership there. The partner is Crease Patel. I think he's on Surrey's books. So he's on Surrey's books, but then he drops up to Esher to play with you. And is he playing every week, or is he sort of under Surrey's control?
He missed the first week because he had to play a school game, but he's played the last 2 weeks. He's currently actually just played a T20 today against Sussex, and he got 53 or 40 odd. He played a T20 for Surrey again last Sunday, and he peeled off 100. So he's starting to find some nice form. So he's going. Unfortunately, the games I'll play with him, he hasn't made as many as he would have liked, but you can definitely see the boy's got some talent.
Well, I was looking at the top three there. There's yourself, Crease, and then Sheridan Gums, who's 20. So your top three are basically 20 and younger. So they've got and then I think we've got Nick Smith coming in a bit later on, who I think he's South African with a UK passport, who seems to have been around a long time. I don't know him personally, but it's a bit of experience there further down. But that top three, you really got some youth on your side there. Those quick singles are going to be annoying a few people, aren't they?
Yeah. And we're lucky as well because Justin Broad, who plays for Northants, when he's available, which he is a fair bit of the year, he comes and plays as well. So, and then Alex French, who's played a lot for Surrey Twos, he's another big boy that comes down and helps the attack. We've had a few very, very good players come to the club over the last 2 years I think a few people have joined from what I've been told, obviously not being here. So I believe when we're full strength, we're going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah. We've got, the sort of the link between Australia and the UK in terms of club cricket has been going on for years and years and years. I think it started with West Indian players coming over into the Lancs League 50 years ago. It's not my remit, but it helped me out a bit better, being a bit more travelled. But just some of the
I'm
names.
not that old, but I do remember a lot of them.
But we've had, this year we've got obviously Jake Weatherall's over in Great Witchingham in the East Anglian Premier League and finally got some runs on the weekend after struggling going. But I was hearing a nice story of Cam Bancroft, who I think, do you open with Cam Bancroft for Western Australia?
I don't open. I tend to bat 3 or 5 when I play, but I bat with him a fair bit.
But so I was hearing a story on Tuesday at one of my lads' games, and Cam Bancroft was bowled out by one of my lads' mates when he was 5. So when Cam Bancroft was at Denby. So there we go. So Cam Bancroft's got some club cricket. And we've also got Isaac Melentis, who's a Willerton player over here at the moment. He's 23. He's gone really well in the Northants League. And then last year we had Jake Lehman, Little Lever, and Jake Fraser McGurk, another one in the East Anglia Prem, straight out of the East Anglia Prem into the Australian side. Yeah. So, it seems to be a nice pathway for current crop of Australians to come over and play club cricket. But, back in the day, the War brothers were over here. Darren Lehman was over here. Loads of them come over. And Steve Smith famously lasted one. He didn't even make a game at Grappenhall before they got him drunk and he legged it. So, yeah. Have they looked after you, Esher? Have they, did you take down the pub first day you got there or were they well behaved?
Oh, well, I got here on the 7th of April. So I've been here a while, but then I went to Berlin for a week and a bit. I've got family over there, but coming back, they've been excellent, mate. Like I cannot complain with what they've done to me so far. Put me up in a nice place. I'm only 150 metres down the road from the club. And then I got shown a few local watering holes around, which I've a local at nearly. It's been great. It's been great.
Let me ask this question then. We've partnered with CricX, who send a lot of players out to Australia and New Zealand over the winter. I think for our friends at CricX, it's a relatively easy sell to get 18, 19, 20-year-olds to go and spend 6 months of the year in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, whatever, playing good quality cricket, part of their development, etc. What attracted you to come into the UK to do the same in England? Because let's be honest, we're not going to give you the weather. I can see the smile now. Weather being one of our favourite subjects on this podcast, not surprisingly. But what was it that said to you at your age, I need to get over there and do that, rather than wait until, I don't know, you're 27, 28, got a first-class career, and maybe want to have something else to do?
Well, from speaking to a lot of, of the cricketers at WA, I think a lot of the best ones, and even in Cricket Australia, they've all come out to England when they're young and they speak about how much fun it is, how much they've learned. And the thing that I am probably taking the most, it's a great nursery to try things. Obviously I'm trying to do my absolute best for the club, which any team I play for, but it might be a place where I might try, reverse sweep the off here in that gap or slog sweep 1 for 6 or try and take a risk that I might not usually take at home just to try and further my game, especially as the white ball game's taken over. I'm a bit of a nicker and nudger and try and bat long periods of time. So taking those risks is a little bit against my nature. So it's a great place to come out and try them and learn a lot about yourself as a bloke and how you want to live your life, but then also learn about how you want to play your cricket.
In terms of your game, obviously you've played first-class cricket for Western Australia, but you mentioned there you've not played a huge amount of T20 one-day stuff. So is that basically where you want to go, take your game to the next level, get into the T20 side of things and the short form? Yeah,
definitely. Red ball cricket will always be my number one priority. I think the pinnacle of the game is playing Test cricket, and I think we've seen the way Ben Stokes and Baz McCullum have revolutionised English cricket. There's still a massive grab of that thrill of Test cricket. So that's always going to be the number one for me. But I think you look at WA's white ball side when you've got Josh Phillippe, Josh Inglis, Mitch Marsh, Sean Marsh was playing, Stoinis, Aaron Hardy, Behrendorff, Andrew Tye, like all these guys. It's bloody hard work to get picked. So for me to, show my stuff, I've got to try and learn it and play it in a game and learn the situations and come out and have that extra summer where I'm hitting a lot of balls and I'm practicing that stuff. So T20 cricket is definitely, something I want to get really, really good at. I've been in the gym trying to get stronger to hit the ball at least past the ring anyway. So it's definitely something I'm going to do to try and take my game to the next level.
That's really interesting to me because one of the things we also do in the Premier League Cricket Show is we partner up with the National Counties Cricket Association. And there's a lot of players in there who are on that Premier League, minor counties, as we used to call it, cusp, almost going towards county level. Whenever we speak to any of them, and the young lads, all these guys, they always talk about red ball cricket as the pinnacle, which is completely against everything that the media tells us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think, well, but anyone after seeing Ben Stokes did what he did at Headingley, after seeing Pat Cummins' heroics and that first test where, he nicked one and got 4 and all the crowds up and about. When test cricket is played right and the wicket's not just conducive to making flat, boring hundreds, I think the game is so much better. And there's definitely a place for it, because the thrill of, the momentum swings, playing for 5 days of hard-fought cricket. Like I've played 4-day cricket. When it goes down to the last session on day 4, that first beer you have after a win and singing the team song, that is what playing the game is all about. And this is what WA's big on, is we say celebrate success. That's one of our trademarks. We work bloody hard. We get thrashed sometimes at training. But when you're sitting back after winning a Shield and winning a one-day title and you're with the lads singing your team song, that 3 or 4 minutes there of pure joy with some of the best mates makes it all worth it.
When I lived over there, you really appreciate how tough these 4-day games are. In the summer there, whether it's West Australia or anywhere, it is hot, it's windy, it's dry, there's flies. It's a slog, it's not 20 degrees in the lovely sunshine, the lovely green weather. And we moan about it when it gets to about 23, 24, if it's getting up 38, 39, it is bloody hard work, and that's when I used to duck out and go for a swim. And if you're playing cricket for 4 days in that is tough work.
Yeah, it is bloody tough sometimes, but that's why we love it.
Are you a surfer as well? Are you surfing? What are the other sports? What are you doing away from cricket?
I'm not the most surfer bloke going around. I love going to the beach and going for a dip with a mate and then, catching up down by the beach. But I'm probably more of a golf guy. I'm not trying to say I'm any sort of golfer. I am absolutely useless, but I do enjoy getting out there on the carts and maybe going for a walk every now and again and just chewing the fat for about 5 or 6 hours with some good blokes.
You got Secret Harbour near you, haven't you? That's like a golf course. The harbour's so secret they never built it.
I was a member at Secret Harbour for a year.
Very good.
Only for 1 year because the course is too windy and it's too hard for me. I like straight fairways, a lot of trees, not much anything. Just
a few houses knocking about as well. Yeah,
too many houses. A few solar panels. Got
the one thing that seems to unite every single cricketer we ever speak to is golf. The England boys are famous for preferring golf to cricket, and then the national counties guys, they're quite happy to just talk golf and not cricket. It seems to be this uniting force that every cricketer just wants to be Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, I know, and probably every golfer wants to be a cricketer.
Well, that's right. I'm going to derail the conversation slightly and head into one of my favourite areas, indoor cricket. Now, we are lucky in Derby. We've got an indoor cricket centre in the Aussie fashion, which there's not many in the UK. And one of the things that people threw at me when I first started putting junior teams in there and playing myself was indoor cricket ruins your game. Are you an indoor cricketer, or is there this big divide where it's like, if you're an outdoor cricketer, do you not play indoor and vice versa, or is there still that connection?
Look, it's really hard for me to comment because I've only ever played one game of fill-in indoor cricket.
Wow,
And I got a little bit, I try and be very technically correct. So when I, play my front foot drive and it goes nowhere and then you're trying to run, it's just too chaotic for me. But, I don't know. It's a completely different swing path. I think you can see a little bit when blokes have played indoor cricket because they're real good at that, like slap down through point, because you have to hit it down and hit it. Sometimes they're probably better against the spin, but I actually probably am not qualified enough to comment on whether I agree.
Is it still quite big in Australia? I've always imagined that it's pretty big over there, and lots of kids play it, and obviously like the War Brothers played it back in the day, and Steve Smith and that. Ponting was famously an indoor cricketer, I believe, but is it still quite a big deal, and is it not quite what it was maybe when I was there? Or
I think it's still pretty prevalent around, but I'm not sure if they're getting more or less teams.
Right.
I've got a couple of mates who love indoor cricket because they can just sit out of the sun in the air conditioning and have a stubby while they play. So it can be an attraction, but I can't say, I don't think it's getting any bigger.
Right, okay. Done me there. There goes my whole sales pitch to the ECB.
Do you want me to take that pitch completely out of the pod now?
You've ruined it, Teague, yeah.
Sorry, boys.
I think for me, indoor cricket in this country, I think because the weather's so dreadful, and particularly in the last year, I mean, the kids haven't even been able to play football outside in the last year because it's been too awful. It's been a real horror. And indoor cricket's has been a saviour for me because these kids, you've got them every weekend, they're bouncing off the walls and you can chuck them down the indoor cricket centre and they're happy as Larry all day and they're playing cricket. They're not, getting stuck in, they're learning all sorts of things. But yeah, you're right about that slap 3-point or just using your wrists a lot more and keeping the ball down. I've noticed that there's, manipulating the ball and particularly against spin with the bounce and the turn, it's there. But the trouble is then you walk out onto an English wicket, you play those shots, the ball's stuck in the pitch and you throw your shot, your top edge and you're out. So you've got to change your technique.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the key things that I picked up from Hugh in indoor cricket is it works great if you're going to come out from the indoor cricket season and actually get out onto grass and get playing straight away. Yeah. But if you've been spending a winter playing indoor cricket on, let's be honest, a surface that as hard as the Wacker, you're all of a sudden going to come out onto something, nothing better than a sponge, basically, is what we're playing on half the time in April and May. And in a lot of cases in the Midlands up our way, Teague, a lot of the lads came out to play their first red ball game. They'd not even been out on grass beforehand, had they, Hugh? No.
It's been... I mean, you've been quite lucky to. You kind of missed the very worst of it. It was a shocker. So hopefully this weekend's looking a bit better. Should be good for you. Who have you got this weekend?
We're playing Ashtead, and I've just been told that Ben Geddes isn't in the Surrey squad, I'm pretty sure. So he might be playing on Saturday. Unaware of whether Mark Stoneman is available. But when they're full strength, they're a very good team. I'm guessing Dom Sibley's in the Surrey team. So you could have Geddes, Stoneman and Sibley in your top three, which would make it a difficult lot for the bowlers.
Yeah. So from the Esher point of view, are you playing in their T20 comps? You playing all the games available to them? What's the summer like with them looking like?
Yep. So we've got our first T20 next Thursday, hopefully if the rain stays away. I'm pretty sure there's a National Cup T20, and then there's also just the normal T20s that they play. Don't quote me on it. I'm still not 100% sure on the system, but I'm going to try and play as many games, not just for Esher. If I get invited to play in a T20 comp up in Birmingham or in Liverpool or anything like that, I'd definitely love to go and play games of cricket, as long as it's...
So talking about the T20s, we've got a system and a half when it comes to T20 and the national competition. I mean, you've got to win locally to go regionally, to go national in art. I mean, how's that work back in Australia? Is there a national T20 club competition, or is it just literally that state level?
So COVID stopped that a little bit. It's very hard to travel that far in a state, and it's a lot of money that Cricket Australia or the Wacker have to fund. But we have a grade cricket T20 competition. So I think that you play about 5 games, and then the top 2 teams of each of the 4 pools play in a semi against each other, and then it's so-and-so. So it's not like a national knockout. But what they did pre-COVID was that whoever won the grade cricket competition would fly to Adelaide and play the other states.
Brilliant.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's like a giant finals day for all the state winners.
Yeah, it's over like 2 days. So Fremantle were the last team to do it. They won. I think they played Sutherland in New South Wales. They played Geelong in Victoria, or Geelong for in Adelaide in that national competition. I think there's 6 or 7 teams that go and do it. So it's actually pretty good.
Well, you do know who the national champions for T20 in club cricket in England is, don't you?
Was it Wimbledon won it last year?
Your face says it all. Yes, Wimbledon won it last year. Was it 148 you scored against them?
Yeah, I managed to hit a few out the screws, yeah.
I do have friends at Wimbledon, so I don't. But no, I mean, it's a journey to get to just the national final in England, because you've got to play anything up to 12 to 16 games, depending on which part of the country you're in. And again, the rules are different in every county and every league, which means it's, one of the strange ones we found was the guys who win the T20 competition in South Wales last year get to play in the nationals this year. It's just all, different rules all over the place. But at the end of the day, it's still T20 and you can still say you're national champion. And for Esher to get stuck into that one, you'd love that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it'd be great. We put out a National Cup side for the 40-over competition. That was absolutely diabolical. It was actually probably better off forfeiting than playing. It's against Weybridge, and they absolutely pantsed us. So hopefully, it's hard to get blokes playing 2 games in a weekend sometimes with full-time jobs and families. But I'd like to think if you put a side out, you should fully buy into it as a cricket club. That's the way I've always been taught. You play for the club, when or where you're picked, you play for them. Mm-hmm. So I know it's tough with full-time jobs. I understand that, but there might have been a couple of guys maybe who had tee times that they had booked for a while, and it's just sometimes I understand it's difficult, but you play for the club. So
back in Australia, though, back in Western for you, how many games a season would a grade cricketer play?
I'd say, well, there's 15 games of proper grade cricket, which is the one-day competition, and the 2-dayer, which is played over 2 weekends.
Which would be the equivalent to the Surrey Championship for you?
Yeah. So there's 15, and then you play around 5 or so T20s. You might get play in just an average, local T20 comp on a Tuesday night or something. So I'd say maybe 20, 21 games of cricket, and that's not including five. Not including.
Like you say, some of those are 2-day games. So you're playing, over 2 weekends.
Yeah, it's brutal. You can go a month without a hit sometimes. If you bat first and then you bowl the next week, then you bowl first the next game, and then you bat and then you miss out and then you bowl again, all of a sudden you've gone nearly 6 weeks without some good time in the middle. It can be absolutely brutal, but it teaches you to be tough because you don't want to throw your wicket away.
What happens if someone's ill or something in that week? I've always kind of questioned that, is you just got to crack on. You don't have sort of late replacement.
No, stiff bickies.
Guess what the name of this pod's going to be?
Stiff bickies.
Yeah.
Bickies,
I've not
definitely.
heard that one.
Yeah, without I totally get that, because the word that I heard you say, Teague, that just stuck with me there. It does teach that toughness. You are not going to give that wicket away over absolutely bloody nothing, because you don't know when the next time you're going to pick up a bat is, basically.
Yep, 100%. And I see kids over here at the moment, well, especially in half term, they're playing 5 games of cricket. If they get out, it's like, oh, well, next game.
Exactly.
But there's no real emphasis on, all right, you got to take that as a punch, like if the bowler gets you out, he's beaten you like that. You should take that as, you've lost. So I think there might be a little bit of a discrepancy between Western Australia and England in how much value they put on their wicket. And I don't know. I've only been here a short period of time. I don't want to go saying, Australians are, tougher on their wicket.
I've always tried to teach our juniors the word consequence from very early on.
Yeah.
And, we play pairs cricket at under 11, which they can get out as many times as they want, but they just lose 5 runs. The moment they step to under 13s and when they're out, the mental change that they have to go through there is so significant. And that's where that word consequence comes in. It's like, hold on to that wicket, but you do still need to score runs, because you can see them going from, I'm not going to get out, to, well, I'm not going to run just in case what's going to happen. And you guys have got just I think that mental toughness from an early age because of the way you've been brought up, basically, there with that consequence, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's not really something that the coaches talk about. Well, obviously you want to be mentally tough, but it's just naturally probably born into us because you can go a month without a hit. So
exactly,
it's probably just a thing that comes more naturally. But I haven't played any of there's no real 2-day cricket over here. It's timed matches, isn't it? So regardless, you're still getting a bat every week. But I think both systems are great in their own right. One, you can't really complain as a family man, and you pay your fees. You want to get a bat every week. Like I completely understand that. And also 2-day cricket's great in its own right because you can, get outrights and draws and declarations. You probably get a lot more of that in 2 90 over days. But they're both good in their own right. They've both got their own arguments.
I think the systems seem to mirror each other. The ECB have this massive problem with far too many games of cricket happening, and want to move towards a sort of Australian state-style system where there's a lot less cricket played, but it's more concentrated. South Africa goes down a similar route. There's sort of concentration of cricket. A spreading of cricket, but concentration of the talent, and the counties are pushing back against that because obviously they make money. And the same is the case in club cricket. It's just a constant churn, and particularly up north, we've been chatting to guys up north, they're playing, 2-3 games a week, potentially 4 games a week every week through the summer. And they love it. They're used to that, but that is the system. And I think it's mirroring the professional game in the way that the Australian seems to mirror.
But as difficult as it is, England's probably one of the only countries that you might not be able to do the 2-day weekends because of the weather.
Yeah.
And I know, sorry to dull the mood with the English weather, but it's probably just a reality, isn't it? Like one week you bat. If you have a bit of rain, all of a sudden there's Duckworth and it's all a little bit more difficult. So it is tough, but I thoroughly enjoy 2-day cricket. But I'm not a fan. I haven't got, a wife and 2 kids yet and have to go.
No rush, mate. No rush. Just one thing I'd like to chat is I've followed Tom Scollay on YouTube for quite a number of years. He's a brilliant resource for getting stuff, helping me with junior coaching and other bits and pieces. And that's someone you've been involved with, I think, when you're 14, 13, when you started getting some coaching from him. Is that right?
My first ever hit with him when I was 13. So it's coming up 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah. And it's just, what's the process with him? Is he just your go-to guy? You just drop back, if you feel something's not right. How does it work? How does he keep you in tune?
So he's probably the one guy, if I'm in an absolute crisis, I'd ring and be like, mate, just tell me what you think. So we're probably not hitting as much as we used to nowadays. Obviously being in the system full time, you're training heaps and I'll still hit with him 8 or 10 times a year. Like that might not sound like much, but in amongst all the cricket, you're away for a shield trip, you're back, you're playing cricket, like you need a little rest. It is still, good to go back to him. But he's more so probably for the mental side for me. Being a real nervous, sometimes anxious cricketer when I play, he's taught me to free up a lot and be a lot more positive when I bat. I used to get 60s off 160 balls. I used to be one of the toughest competitors. Like, you're not getting me out, but then what's the balance if you're not scoring runs? Like, you're better off getting 60 off 80 as opposed to 60 off 160. It's the same amount of runs and you're wasting a lot of pellets. So he's taught me a lot about mental toughness and game plans and how to deal with nerves, which I think is seriously under-taught. When you go have a talk to a coach, you just talk about, all right, get your elbow high, foot to the ball, weight transfer. They don't actually talk about method, game plan, how to control tough situations, which I think is a lot more important sometimes. Obviously, we all have our technique, which is very, very important. I'm not saying it's not, but the mental side of the game. Steve Waugh always said cricket's 90% mental, 10% technical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just, you played the Australia Under-19 World Cup a few years back. You were the top scorer for Australia, had a terrific tournament. What's the thought process going to that? Did you see that as a free hit? Because it's like a bonus. It was a bit COVID time as well, wasn't it? You're getting caught up in lockdowns and this, that, and the other. But how did you sort of mentally approach that period? Because you obviously did superbly.
I think I approach most of my games pretty similar. You get a little bit, maybe slightly more anxious about the result when you're playing in those games. But I still get nervous playing for Rockingham Mandurah. I get nervous playing for Esher. I get nervous playing for WA, regardless. But I've come up with certain methods to try and help control that. I think the thing you find when you are playing in those high quality games is you just have to be so clear. You got to have so much clarity in your thought process, in your plans. The thing that's probably got me in trouble in the last 2 or 3 years of playing Shield cricket, and I'm the first bloke to admit my record's not great. I wish I could do it differently, but you can't be focusing about your technique. You got to be focusing on game plan, method, getting into contests. I think that's something you find when you're playing club cricket. You can worry about sometimes, all right, I don't want my head to fall over. I want to get it down the wicket. But if you're focusing on that when a guy's bowling 140 at you, before you know it, it's hit you. And I've gone from trigger to no trigger to 1 foot trigger to hands up, hands down. I've done absolutely everything the last 2 years. And that's out of a place of trying to get better. All I want to do is get better. But I think I've currently found a method that I think is best suited for me now. And it's up to me to stick to that and get bloody good at it and try and stay clear in that. And at that World Cup, I made second 11 runs. I made grade runs. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't even in the system for WA. I was just so clear in my plan. And I went out there and just batted. And I think then you go and play Shield cricket. Like, I've got no expectation. If I get a duck, like, he's 17. Like, he's a young fella. But then the more and more you play, I got a Shield 100 when I was 18, and I had a lot of expectation. I got put next to Ricky Ponting's name because I was the youngest since him to get 100. And then all of a sudden you compared, and then you start thinking about the consequences when you get out. And then I had a batting coach who I'm very close with. He had an opinion on how he think I should bat, and I trusted him. And no doubt that technique can work, but it didn't quite feel as comfortable for me. And I had just an honest chat to him. I was like, mate, I love you as a coach. I think you're great, but I just don't think that method is working for me at the moment. I think it can definitely work, but it's not as comfortable. And I think as long as you're clear and you back your game and you know how you want to play, that's the most important thing the higher up you go.
Yeah, I think we had a chat with Noah Kelly, who's top Yorkshire prospect a few weeks back. He very nearly ended up in the under-19 side, one of the top Premier League run scorers last year. He's 18 doing an A-level, and he had a very similar message. Back your own game. Lots of coaches will tell you lots of things, but you've got to go with what works for you, and that's good. But you're quite hard on yourself there. You're still 20. Like nobody else is breaking into Shield games at 20. You've had a meteoric rise, and it seems from the outside, often lads, football, Aussie rules, all sorts, they have this burst onto the scene, then it gets a bit tricky sometimes, and then they work it out,
Yeah, the second year blues. And I probably didn't have the second year. Well, I did have the second year blues, but it was my third year because I played 2 games in the first year. But you get figured out. Like as a junior, this is what I'm saying with playing school cricket. There's so much film out now. There's blokes bowling fast around your ears and they can nick you off. There's so much footage out there you cannot hide. There is absolutely no hiding. And people who say, the games was better in the 70s and the 80s. How many sports have we looked at where we've gone backwards? The average bowler is bowling so much faster. They're full-time athletes. They're not drinking 15 stubbies day before a game. Well, not that I know of anyway. So the game's gotten so much better, and you've just got to be so on. Like the minute that you're 1% off, not fully focused, and as a batter, one mistake, sayonara.
Painful, isn't it?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. There's 32 ECB Premier Leagues around the country, 350-ish clubs. I'm going to bet right now probably half of them are streaming their games these days. And as a consequence, before you go to any match, if you want to just have a look at 10 minutes of highlights, you can do it. 5 years ago, you'd have been lucky to see 1 or 2 of them. Now there's so many. It's got to raise the standards, hasn't it?
But it's the same with like the mystery spinners. It's say in T20, mystery spinners are still dominating the game, but the effect is slowly starting. You see a lot of mystery spinners burst onto the scene, have 1 year, then all of a sudden they see, all right, their pinky's out, that means it's a wrong one, or this is happening, or this one doesn't spin. There's so much footage, so you're forever adapting. As a batter, you get caught at leg slip twice. You've got to go back to the drawing board and do this. You get caught at second slip, now they're just going to bowl out swinging. And the worst ones, when you get bumped out, then you get bloody 6 games in a row where you've got a bat pad and 2 out the hook. It's brutal.
I've just forgot. Who's the lad who was in North?
Peter Hatziglu.
Yeah, Peter Hatziglu. That's the one.
Yeah. I've spent a bit of time with Peter. He's a good guy.
Peter's a good example of that. He's got this very strange, but he's managed to make it work, hasn't he? He's managed to keep people guessing in a T20. Peter's done really well, and in the East Anglia Prem, I think he did well, but he didn't do amazing. But then when he stepped up a level, he made it work. Yeah,
definitely.
So you've got quite a big game actually coming up this weekend against Ashtead, Teague. It's 3rd versus 4th in the Surrey Championship. Both been on a reasonable start. You guys are obviously looking to win the league this year. And from what you've seen so far, who are you thinking 1 or 2 of the major rivals are going to be in the Surrey Championship?
I'd like to think Reigate are a very good side. The thing about them, you can tell they play their ground very well. And to win championships, you've got to make your home ground a fortress. I think that's any team that's ever had a long period of success, they make their home ground their fortress. So
any team, any sport, that is, isn't it, really?
Yeah, pretty much. So that you can see how they play their conditions very well. They know their ground. They played very well. I think Wimbledon will be up there. I think they didn't have a great game against us, but they'll be very good. They're probably the 2 teams that spring to mind. It's probably easier because I've played against them and I know what they're like. But I think Sutton the Smokies. That's a little. I'm going to throw that out there. I think Sutton aren't the worst team going around. They've got Fabian Cowdery. They've got another guy, Blake, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
They've just come up. We played them first game, and I can just see them squeezing teams. I think they'll be very good. That's the Smoky.
So I learned a few Aussie colloquialisms when I was over there, but I'm learning some new ones today. I need to get back. It's been a while. It's been 10 years, so I need to get back.
He keeps saying that. He keeps saying. Fingers crossed Teague will be trying to keep that average above a ton. It's a nice to be able to look at those statistics, isn't it, Teague, and go, I'm averaging a ton right now.
I try not to look at the stats too much because at the end of the day, winning games in cricket's what matters the most. And if we're winning, that's all I'm happy about.
You can't in Australia either because you can't get on bloody Play HQ and look at the stats. God knows what's happening there. But anyway.
If you had one hope for this season while you're over in the Surrey Championship, what would it be?
To win the championship. That's why we play, isn't it?
But you see, I thought he might come out with something really fundamental, personal about developing his
golf
game.
Related.
No, he's just said he wants to win the championship, which is what we want to hear. That, to be frank,
and to get my handicap to single figures. Nah, I'm kidding.
There we go.
If your handicap comes down to single figures and your average stays over 100, will be happy days for you. But if your average drops, while your handicap goes down at the same time. What's the name of the coach at Esher?
Will Tabaret is the coach at Esher.
Yeah, I think we'll be giving him a shout straight away today. Is he practicing enough, or is he on the golf course too much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teague, been an absolute pleasure catching up with you, mate. And I know you've got a busy week this week with all those kids to look after down at Esher. I'm sure that wait till you get to the summer holidays and have summer camps, then you won't know what's hit you when that comes round at all. Be great to see, as you've said already, if you can get up to the Midlands, up to North, play any other games. Anyone who's listening and fancies a Western Australia top quality batter to come and play a game somewhere else around the country, Teague's up for it. He wants to experience as much cricket as he can on as many, I'll just call them English surfaces, because I could say some up and downs there, couldn't I, Hugh, I think?
That's it.
Ian's
looking for a commission as well.
Yeah, Crick X, you can bugger off, I'm having this one. Our mates there will hear that and go, hang on a minute, what's going on? But no, genuinely, I like the idea of you getting around with someone, one or two other places, playing other games, see other bowlers, because you're going to see the same bowlers twice it was through the Surrey Championship, but go and see all our slow left armers in the Liverpool competition. It's full of them, for example. Great experience. Love to catch up with you towards the end of the season as well, Teague, and see how it's gone. And we might even then have to keep an eye on Rockingham Mandurah during the winter, right, Hugh?
Oh, mate, yeah. I'll keep an eye on it by moving out there, I think, if this weather keeps up.
It just started pissing down too, so.
Yeah, so
isn't it funny? That is one of the technical terms that works, whether it's down in Australia or here.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Teague.
No problem, fellas.
Thanks, Teague.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening to the Premier League Cricket Show. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes and stay updated on all the latest news, views and discussions from around the Cricket's Premier Leagues. And be sure to follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram at TPL Cricket Show on both. Join the conversation, share your thoughts and connect with us and your fellow Premier League cricket fans. And hey, if you enjoyed the show, why not show us some love? Leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform, as it helps other potential listeners to find us when they're searching for cricketing podcasts. Thanks again for being part of the Premier League Cricket Show family, and until next time, have a good one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.